Okay, hi everybody. If you're watching this, it's because you've taken a class from me recently, and this is a bonus video. So in this bonus video, I'm going to show you how to paint from an inspiration photo that you can find anywhere. You can either take it from yourself or you can find it somewhere on the internet, and how to paint from that photo a piece of art two ways. We're going to do a traditional painting on this side, just acrylic paint, and on this side we're going to do it as a mixed media piece. In preparation for this project, I've already done a couple of things. So here I'm working in a large Delusions journal sold by Ranger Ink. You can find them just about any place, including online, and you could use any kind of journal for this. This happens to be the one I'm using right now. You could do either one of the versions of this project on watercolor paper in another kind of a art journal or journal pad of paper. You could do it on a canvas board. You could do it on a stretch canvas. You could do it on a piece of cardboard for that matter. So use what you have, and if you want to do a traditional painted piece, then you need to prep your surface by covering it with a good coat of white gesso, which I've done here. Let it dry completely and then we can get started. If you want to try doing a mixed media piece, then the preparation for that's fairly simple. You want to take some old book text. I have lots of old books around. I buy them specifically for working on mixed media projects. These are a few examples. I've got Bible pages, novel pages. Actually, these I think are from a Red Cross first aid book. These are from an Italian vocabulary book. These are from an Asian English dictionary. So any old text paper. It doesn't even have to be English text for that matter. You see in here there's some Japanese character text in here. So take a few of those and use some Golden Gel Medium is my preferred glue for this. I have Golden's brand Heavy Gel in Matte, and I used it to glue down all of my text pages to my paper, and I let it dry thoroughly. Now, how you use this stuff is with a palette knife, and you really just scoop a bit out, spread it on your paper, put your book page down, and then I use an old gift card to smooth it out flat. Then I go to the next piece, and I just keep doing that until the page is covered. I let both of them dry completely. Let me get the lid back on this. I let both of them dry completely. They've dried overnight, and now we're going to get started on the painting part. Before we get started, I am going to protect my hands. I know I talk about this in class. All paint brands are not created equally, and some of the pigments used in some of the brands are toxic. Grumbacher is not one of them, but I frequently use all different kinds of art materials when I'm painting, since I'm a mixed media artist. So I like to try to, if I remember, use a product like Art Guard. There's also another one called Invisible Glove on my hands before I get started. It's just like a lotion, and it will help prevent some of the chemicals from absorbing into your skin, but also make the paint easier to wash off when you're done. So we're going to do that first. Okay. Now, I don't have all of the colors of Grumbacher paint here at home in my studio that I have in class. It seems like I'm out of a couple colors. So it's possible that at some point I grab another brand like Winsor Newton or Golden, which I do have. But to start with, we're going to use cadmium red. These are all Grumbacher paints. I have phthalo violet, burnt umber, Mars black, titanium white, phthalo blue, and yellow ochre, at least to start. We'll see how far I get with those colors. I may need to add, I think I might be missing ultramarine blue, but we'll see. Now, our inspiration photo was sent to me by a student. Thank you, Pat. She sent me this really nice, pretty autumn photo. And this is the one that we are going to use to paint. Isn't it pretty? Okay, to start with, we are going to grab a pencil. I'm just going to grab, this is the first pencil I grabbed, honestly. I didn't even look. This is a 4B Staedtler drawing pencil. There's nothing special about it. The first thing I want to do is give myself some reference points. So I want to draw in the horizon, and I want to draw in this main focal point of this walkway and the fence. That's the most important part of this painting. It doesn't have to be, you know, a set definite, this is a guide. If you go outside the lines, we're not going to worry too much about that. This is just a guide, but I want to make sure I don't screw up the perspective of this painting. This is like the most important part of the painting. So I'm going to sketch it in here just loosely. I'm not worried about making lots of extra lines because we're going to be covering up these with paint. I'm just, like I said, I'm just giving myself a guide. Having done a piece with a fence in it before, what I know is important is that I get these vertical pieces in the correct place. Now, like I said, we're using the photo as inspiration. We're not trying to copy it exactly. But you want to try to get these pieces, some of which, because of the perspective of the photo, may not exactly be straight, but you want to get them in the right place or in the right angle. That's about right. Okay. So I'm going to take this, and I have all of these binder clips hanging above my desk. So I'm going to clip the photo to that. And we're going to do the same thing on the side with the book text. It's going to be a little harder to see the lines because of the book text, but that's okay. And I'm just doing a loose, sketchy line. I'm not pushing very hard on the pencil. How detailed you get your painting and or your drawing is going to depend on the look you want for your painting. I am more of an impressionist painter. I am not necessarily a realist painter. So if you really want something that's more realistic, you're going to want to maybe go into a little bit more detail. I just want to give myself a guide. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, so I'm going to be using a piece of old book paper as a palette, which is something I normally do. And I am going to put my apron on first. Since I am teaching today, let's try not to get paint on my clothing. That would be handy. All right. So I have some phthalo blue here. Which I'm going to mix with titanium white. We're going to work on the sky first. I am going to get a number 2 flat brush, but if you have a filbert, any sort of, you know, wide flat brush will do. I also am going to grab my baby wipes, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we're going to mix these up. I'm shooting for a light blue color. That's really too blue. So let's add a whole bunch more white to that. Now you can use the colors in your inspiration photo as a guide. You don't have to match them exactly, and maybe you don't want it to be an autumn scene. Maybe you want to make the leaves on the ground green. Maybe you want to go that way. That's totally fine. That's better. It doesn't have to be an exact match, like I said. So I'm going to paint in the sky. In this case, because I'm working in my book, but I'm working on the same painting in the book on each page. I don't have to worry too much about not getting paint on this side, but normally I would not be doing this, and I would have another piece over there, so I would be trying to be a little bit careful. And you'll see here I've got some random bits and pieces stuck to my page, but I just gessoed right over them. That's fine. It's going to be good. Now on this side, because it is the traditional painting, I'm going to just grab some titanium white, and using the photo as a guide, I'm going to put some there. Just blending just a little bit, not completely. This is just the first coat. This is not by no stretch the finished sky. Okay? Just make sure you cover all of your white background, your white gesso. Now we'll go to the other side, and we'll start with the blue. Now you'll notice right away one of the differences between this side, which is not gessoed, and the other side, which is gessoed, is the paint is much easier to spread. It doesn't absorb into the paper right away. It sits on top of the gesso. So if you wanted to, you could coat this page with the book text on it with some clear gesso. That way you'll still be able to see the book text a little bit when you're done. But you would have that ability to spread the paint a little bit more easily. Now on this side, on the mixed media side, if this is what you're doing, you need to work a little bit quickly. I'm just making sure most of my nooks and crannies are filled with paint, and I'm putting on some white like I did on the other side. And I know you're thinking, why did she bother with the book text? Now you can't see it. I'm going to show you. So, on this side where we have the book text, I'm going to wipe back some of my paint where the clouds would be, or the lighter places would be. And I'm going to let some of that book text show. And I may not even wipe all the paint away. I'm just going to wipe some of it away so that the blue is more translucent, and that the book text will give the finished piece some interest. keep switching the place on your baby wipe to remove paint, and if you want to just kind of spread out what's there, then just keep using the same spot, because that's exactly what it'll do. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I'm good with that. So we're going to let that dry for a minute. Excuse me. And we are going to mix up some orange. I'm going to get a fresh piece of paper here to mix on. So I'm going to use the cadmium red, which is already kind of an orangey red. And I'm going to mix it with yellow ochre. And I'm going to have some yellow ochre to the side, I think. And I'm going to get a filbert brush. Whoops. Okay, I think that needs more red. Now the reason I'm not continuing on with the sky is because I want that blue to dry, and I want to be putting some violet and maybe even some of the orange in the sky, but if I don't wait until the blue dries before I do that, then it's going to just turn muddy, so we don't want to do that. And right now we're just laying down base layers of paint and color. So we are going to using our photo as a guide, we're going to do exactly that, and we're going to I can still see my pencil lines through the paint a little bit. That's good. This is just a base layer, a base coat. I'm grabbing a little bit of just the straight cadmium red to put in there every now and then. But basically I just want to get some color down so it's not white anymore. I'm using a magazine page to hopefully make sure I don't mark up the the next page underneath. I'm not usually very successful. I usually mark things up. This is just straight yellow ochre. And I'm just looking in the inspiration photo for the spots that it seems to me are a little bit lighter. This is just a base coat, so if you don't get it in the right place, it's not a huge deal. I need some more paint. Now if you have to mix the color again because you run out and you don't get the exact right color, like I said already, this is a base color, so it's fine. It's not going to matter too much. Although I got pretty close. Cool. All right. It's a big giant glob of paint. Just like before, I'm going to look for the spots that seem to me are a little bit lighter and brighter. Maybe spots are a little bit redder. And I'm going to put that in my base coat. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Sort of. I'm going to show you. I'm not going to put any more paint than that. Put down some of my yellow ochre. And some of the straight cadmium red. And I'm going to get out a fresh baby wipe. And I'm going to spread the paint around with a baby wipe. And you'll notice what that does is give me a nice thin coat of paint that I can still see the text through, which I like. Okay, I'll do that on the other side. Now I do have an finished art journal page on the other side of this piece. So one thing I want to do is lift this up on that side, which I haven't. Now we are going to let this dry. I'm just making sure all the spots are covered. Okay, we're going to let this dry and we'll be right back. Okay, I lied. We're not going to let this dry yet. So the other thing I'm noticing about the inspiration photo is there is some orange in the walkway, some fallen leaves. So we are going to just take a little bit of this leftover. I have some leftover orange paint, so let's just take a little bit of it and put it on the walkway in both pieces. Okay, and the other thing I want to tell you is that if you don't want to just let this dry naturally and you want to speed up the drying process, of course you can use a hair dryer. You could even use a heat embossing tool if you have one. Just be careful not to get the paint too hot too quickly. It is acrylic paint, so basically it's plastic. So if you get it too hot too quickly, it's going to melt and bubble and create a texture that you probably don't want. So you want to be very careful. Now you will notice on the traditionally painted pieces I'm using the baby wipe. The baby wipe is a very handy tool, whether you're doing mixed media or not, to move paint around. It's a great tool to use. And I just really want to put a thin layer of this paint around on the walkway on both pieces. Like I said before, this is just a base coat, so we're by no stretch of the imagination done. And there's going to be lots of other colors and marks that are going to go on here. But I can use that little bit of paint and move it around and get a nice base coat going. Blend out some of the brush strokes and lines a little bit where the paint hasn't dried yet, and there we go. Alright, we're going to let that dry and I will be right back. Okay, it's not completely dry, but I think it's dry enough, and I have pulled out some Winsor Newton acrylic paints in two colors I'm missing in the Grumbacher, cerulean blue and cadmium yellow. And we are going to mix up a very light yellow. I don't really care for the caps on the Winsor Newton paints because they are really hard to get off. I have to use pliers. But anyway. So I'm going to mix up a pale yellow here on this. paper. Clean brush, clean brush. I'll use another filbert. I don't know what size it is. It's all marked up with paint. But anyway, it's a filbert brush. I'm going to make a pale yellow with the titanium white that was on here. I'm actually going to make it a little paler, so we're going to add some more white to it. I'm a little bit off camera while I'm doing this. You can kind of see me in the corner, but there's no more room on my table. It's very messy. Okay. That's better. So I've got a very pale yellow, and then on my other paper here, I'm going to mix some more of my cadmium red with the cadmium yellow, make a brighter orange color. Did I already say I hate these caps? Yeah, I hate these caps. Okay. Get another brush. I have a lot of brushes, so I'm never one that's short for them. So this is another filbert, and this is a 12. This one needs to be cleaned a little bit, but I think it'll work. Okay. So I'm going to mix these together. Makes a brighter orange, so using the cadmium yellow instead of the yellow ochre again gives you a brighter, sharper, clearer yellow, and the yellow ochre is a little bit grayed down or browned down. So then I'm going to take some of this, not all of it, but some of it, and I'm going to add some titanium white to give me a pale orange. Yeah, like that. The other color that I want to use is some violet. I'm going to put this on my palette over here with the blue paint. And it too I'm going to mix with some titanium white. And I'm going to end up with a brush for each color, which is what I want. That will save me some time having to wipe off brushes, which I don't want to have to do. Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to continue work on our sky using the inspiration photo. We're going to work on this part of our sky. There's some pale yellow, some oranges, there's a little bit of violet, like even a grayed down violet here. I may add a little bit more blue. I may want to make the colors a little sharper, but we're going to use this as inspiration to get our sky perfect so that when we go back and add the rest of our bushes, our fence, our trees, we don't have to worry about the sky anymore. It's already done. So let's go. So I'm going to start with this here. We'll do one at a time. And the one color I do want is some straight titanium white. And let's get another brush. Okay, and I'm just going to use my fingers. And I'm going to just put on my colors about where I want them, using my fingers to blend them on the page, directly on the page, on the painting. If I get too much of one color, which I might have just right there, then I'm going to grab a baby white. The underneath paint's pretty dry, so I can spread it around. I can take it off. That's pretty nice. I like that. So I'm going to take some very pale yellow. I want to put that in. And some white. And I'm going to just keep layering my colors like this until I get something I'm happy with. Take a little bit of brighter orange. Just a little bit, not too much. I'm not worried about getting some of the sky color down here. First of all, this paint's pretty dry so I can wipe it off, but also that's just a base coat, so if I get it down there, it's not a huge deal. Okay, the other thing I want to do, but you have to do this very carefully because if this color mixes with those colors, you're going to get brown. So, because the violet's obviously got blue in it. But I do want to put a little bit up here. I'm going to use a clean corner of my baby white. And again, I'm using the photo that they sent me for inspiration, but I'm also doing my take on or my version of said photo, so I'm not really wanting to do the photo exactly. Now you may want to at some point just dab some paint in, give yourself some different texture. I like that. I'm going to put my paintbrushes down in the different colors they go in. Whoops. See, sometimes that happens, but that's okay. Alright, so first of all, that can just get spread around. But let's come over here. Okay, here's our inspiration photo, and here's our piece. I'm liking where this is going. I'm going to let that dry because I'm not sure I want to do anything more to it, but we're going to let it dry for a minute and I'm going to see. And while it's drying, we're going to come over to the mixed media side. As usual, when I'm painting, I'm running out of room. That happens all the time. So we're going to start on this side with some white. Some very pale yellow. And a little bit of the darker orange. That might be what's missing over here. Let's put some of that in. Now on the mixed media side, we want to continue to have some of that text show through. That's the point of putting it down there in the first place. So we're going to use the baby wipe like we did on this side in a similar fashion, only in this case we're going to make sure some of that text shows through. Now your yellow colors are naturally sort of translucently pigmented. They're not as opaque as other colors, no matter the paint brand. So they will naturally lend themselves to having some sort of underneath layers of paint showing through. And just keep working your colors back and forth, using your fingers, using baby wipes, using your brushes, until you really get something that you're really happy with. So I'm stepping back a little bit and I'm taking a look at the inspiration photo. I'm taking a look at both paintings, seeing what I do and don't like about them. Adding color where I think it needs it. Taking away color where I think I need to do that. Sometimes when you're working on a painting, you just are you're just working and working and working a section until you get it looking exactly the way you want it to, and it's not usually ever a quick process. And when you're working with colors like these, it's very, very tricky not to just make a whole bunch of brown. The trick to it is not to blend too much. See, I kind of like that. I think I should leave it because I like that, and I like this one too. They're very different. This one you can see still some of the text through it, which I really like. That makes it interesting, but they're both great. So while I still have some of these oranges and yellows on my palette, we're going to do a little bit of work on that, on this part where the leaves and trees are going to be. And I am going to start with my orange. And I'm looking at my photo. And I'm going to just block in some of the shapes. Spreading the paint out with my fingers, getting rid of most of the brush marks. Taking a second look at my inspiration photo and just deciding if there's anything else I want to add. And I don't think so. Alright, so we're going to let that dry and we'll be right back. Okay, before we let it dry, I decided to mix up some of my Winsor Newton cerulean blue with a little bit of the cadmium red, some of the cadmium yellow, and some white to make this grayish blue color. Just play with your color amounts until you get a color that's sort of like this. It's a grayish greenish blue. And I've decided that I'm going to add that a little bit to the sky. It's one of the things I like about the inspiration photo. And I'm going to use my baby wipe to not only spread it around, but remove some of the brush marks. just keep moving it around until you get something that you like. Yeah, I like that. Right here in the center, I want this to be clear, so there we go. Let's do it over here too. The more colors and layers that you put on a painting, the more marks that you put on there, the more interesting it's going to be. And just give it a try if you think it needs something else. What's the worst that could happen? You get the wrong color in the wrong place? Okay, well, you can get in there right away like I am with the baby wipe and wipe it back, or you can just let it dry and just go over it again with some other colors. It's just going to make your finished painting more interesting in the long run. So give it a try and see what you think. Yeah, see, I like that. I don't know which one I like better. They're both cool. I do think I want to put, just grabbing a little bit of the pale yellow that's left on my palette with my finger. There isn't a lot left. And I'm going to just grab a little bit of titanium white. No more than that. This is just being squeezed right out of the tube onto my finger. Yeah, we're going to leave it at that. We're going to let it dry and we will be back. Okay, so here's our inspiration photo next to our page that we're doing that's just strictly a painted page. So we're going to start adding some of our darker colors in here by base painting in our walkway and our trees. So I'm going to use burnt umber. Let's see, yeah, burnt umber. And I'm going to get out some Mars black. Not too much black. Excuse me. And I think I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow ochre into the burnt umber. Let's see what color I get if I do that. Yeah, I like that color. And then I want to put in a little bit of black. Yeah, so that's a good color for me that I want to use. So using my inspiration photo here, I am going to start to paint in my walkway. I'm going to try to keep my brush strokes horizontal to mimic the boards in the walkway. we're going to use the brush strokes to our advantage. If I go off into the red area a little bit, that's totally fine, because we're not done yet, not by a long shot. Now, you know, the walkway is wider here at the bottom than it is at the top, so you need to try to keep giving it some of that perspective. So, there we go. Alright, I like that. Now we're going to take a small round brush and some of our paint color that we just made, and I'm going to mix some of it with some water and make it inky, watery, and runny. And I am going to put my trees in. Let's see, right about here. I'm going to twirl my brush and lift it up as I'm going up. Making trunks and branches. Make the base of these a little bit wider. Twirling and lifting, twirling and lifting. Okay, and we've got some trees on the other side here. I'm going to put the bigger trees in first. Add some more water. Again, make the bases a little bit thicker. You can keep adding as many branches as you want. Up here in the distance there are some small trees. Remember, the farther away they are, the shorter, stockier, and smudgier they're going to be. And there is trees and bushes in the far distance of this photo, so I'm going to put some marks in. Also at the base of the trees, there's some dark shapes, so we're going to put those in. And anywhere where we blur our trunk too much, we're going to just paint it back in. I like that. That's pretty good. So now let's work on the other side. Now, just because this is a mixed media piece doesn't mean we don't do the trees and things the same way, because we do. Or at least I do. Trees on the other side. So I'm just suggesting bushes and trees off in the distance. Yeah, like that. I'm going to put a few shadows in here. Yeah. Now let's put in our base color for our walkway. Okay. On the mixed media piece, I'm going to use a fresh baby wipe too. Just blend a little bit, not too much. Yeah, I like that. The other thing I'm going to do on the mixed media side, so I'm going to take, there's a little bit of leftover paint on my palette, and I just put a whole bunch of water. So really have just colored water, right? So we're going to take our book, and we're going to take our colored water, okay. Oops. And we're going to just create some drips and let gravity help us with our trees. It's a really great, fun mixed media technique. Has lots of different names, but it's a lot of fun creating drippage. And the other thing you can do is give it some more water. Yep. Now that does all kinds of wonderful things here. Let me move this so you can see wonderful, wonderful things. Alright, so we are going to let that dry, because now all that drippage and everything we need to let it dry so we can finish our painting and put our fence in. So we're going to do that and we'll be right back. Okay, so before I do any more branches on the trees, and I do think I want to do some more of this drippage on here, I want to do some more with this part here where all the red leaves and things are in the inspiration photo. The very last thing we're going to do is the walkway railing. And I want to also say that this kind of watery drippage and way of doing trees and or bushes is not something that you can only do if you're doing mixed media. Of course not. And the more I thought about it and the more I looked at this, the more I know I want to do it on this side too. So we are going to do that. The main difference between these two right now is this one has the book text behind it. So you can see that really wonderful, interesting texture you get with the book text behind it. And there's some hymns, so there's some music notes in here too, which I really love. So, but first, we are going to mix some cadmium red with, let's see, I'm going to try mixing it with a little bit of this violet. I don't know if it's going to give me the color I want, but there's only one way to tell. So we will mix, 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 mix. Let's see. I tend to be a brush mixer. I know it's not the best way to mix color, but... Okay, see, it did give me, I wanted like a brighter, redder, less orangey color, and that's exactly what I got. Love it. Okay. So using my inspiration photo, which is off camera that way, as a guide, I'm going to dab this color in. In the areas in the photo where I see that there's more red. And less orange. And I am going to have my baby wipes handy. Grab one in case I do something like I just did. I don't want that there. And or in case I want to blend some of this just a little bit, which I do think I want to do. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm dabbing there. In the inspiration photo there's some leaves in the walkway, so I'm going to give some of that. Okay, I'm going to blend a little bit with my baby wipe. I am going to also mix up some more of an orangey color. When you're mixing up colors like this to go over other colors like the orange, you don't have to worry about making the same color. It's just going to add more interest to your page if you have tones and shades in there. I'm going to get another round brush, but this time I think I'm going to grab a little bit bigger round brush. This is a number 12 and this is a number 9. I do think I want that to be more orangey, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of this same violet to this. Let's see what that does. Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, I like that. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing. Let's see. I'm going right over the pathway because in the inspiration photo there is leaves on the pathway. I also want to hide the seam, and the very last thing that we'll do is put the railing in, and that will look like it's just, the base of it is just covered in leaves, which is what we want. Okay, I'm going to take my baby wipe. And you'll notice there's some yellow in here where I didn't quite get the orange mixed very well. I'm totally okay with that. It's just going to give it more interest. I'm going to move the baby wipe around. I'm just smooshing the paint around and getting rid of some of the more obvious brush marks, blending the colors just a little bit. Some of this is going to be behind the railing, but you don't know what's going to show and what's not going to show. So it's really best if you do this first before you get too many details in, then you won't have to go back and touch up your background. I don't know what of this is going to show, what isn't, as I just said, so I'm going to go ahead and put some color on there. Okay. Yep. So here's our inspiration photo. There's our painting. I like where that's headed. That's headed in a great place. So let's work on this side. I need to mix up some more of the dark red. So let's mix our cadmium red again. Let's mix up some more orange while we're at it too. With our violet. And to the orange we'll add some more yellow. Okay. Okay. If I cover up some of this other drippage I did already, that's okay. Can always add more. Mixing up the orange. Okay, we'll add it in. Don't forget to add some to the path. Okay. Baby wipe time. So on the mixed media side, like before, we want to blend like we did over here, but we want to do more. I'm pushing and twisting, and what is that doing? It's blending, but it's also removing, so I can still see that text through the background, which is what I want. Okay, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to, on the pathway, just put back some dark spots. Try to find a clean spot on my baby wipe. It's pretty dirty. Yep. Okay, so now we are going to mix up some more of our dark brown color. just a little bit, because a little bit will go a really long way. So I've got my burnt umber, a little bit of Mars Black, and some yellow ochre. I really liked the color I got when I mixed the three of those together. And I'm going to get a thin liner brush, like I did before. In fact, I should just grab that one. So just mix the three of those together again. I've got my water bottle here. And I'm going to get this good and watery. And I'm going to put some here and here and also here and here. Okay. Yep, I like the way that turned out. Okay, let's do the other side. I'm just using up all of my dark brown paint. Okay, now I'm going to give everything a little spray of water. This is a very messy process, so when you do this, just make sure you are aware of that. And that you are working on top of something you don't mind getting wet. If it's not dripping the way you want, you can always add water. You can blow on it with a straw to get it to go where you want it to. I've seen artists do all of the above. That looks great though. I like the way that's looking. Okay. That is looking fabulous. So let's grab a baby wipe. I'm not worried about the pages too much on this side. But let's make sure those aren't getting too narfed up. And they're not. Now any that's going in a place where I don't want it to, like right there, before the paint dries, just go in with your baby wipe or a paper towel. That's nice. Now you can also go in with the paint that's left on my palette and I can draw some branches. looking at the inspiration photo, while I still have a little bit of this paint, I'm gonna put in some of the shadows that I see. Okay, just made a line I don't like, so. But the paint is wet. There we go. Okay, we're going to let that dry, and we will be back. We're almost done. Okay, I started painting my fence in, and I thought the camera was on, and it wasn't on. Sorry, guys. All right, so I'll show you on the other side. I painted all my posts in on this right side, and now I'm going to just connect them. I'm using a very small brush, two round brushes. One, this one here, I think is a size 1, and then the other one is a 4. And actually, so I'm using the 4 for the parts that are closer to me, because the parts of the fence that are closer to me would be bigger, sharper, fuller, and the parts that are farther away from me would be smaller, thinner, smudgier. So it's just easier to make the lines that I need to make for the basically two different areas with the 2 different size brushes. That's all. That's nice. I like that. There is this board that runs along the base, so I'm going to, and there's no, in the picture there's no leaves on it, so we're going to mimic that. So I'm going to just take my brown. This is the same brown I've been using. It is raw umber and yellow ochre and a little bit of Mars black. And obviously, as you can see, this is the side of the book that has just the traditional painting. I really like that. That looks really great. Okay, let's put the fence in on the other side, and then we will work on some highlights and shadows. So for the other side, just like with the right side that you didn't see on camera because I forgot to film it, I'm going to start at the top with my smaller of the 2 round brushes, and I'm going to start by putting my vertical pieces in. A very light touch on the brush. And I'm constantly referring back to the photo to make sure I'm putting them in at the right angle. And when you get to about here, I don't want too much paint on my brush. So you start to just see really the tops. And then as it comes around, you start to see more. I'm going to switch brushes. Go with a lighter touch to begin with. And as I come around, I will make them thicker and bigger and more bold. Whoops. That's something else you didn't catch on camera. You didn't catch me messing up that fence post, because I did on the other side. Stuck my hand in it too. Alright. That just shows I'm human. It happens to the best of us. Okay. One more fence post on this one. Okay, now we're going to put the horizontal pieces in. Sorry, I'm getting my horizontals and verticals confused. Okay, so light touch with a real small brush. Not sticking my hand over here is a challenge. I would probably recommend to you guys that you do. If you're right-handed, do the left side first and then do the side closer to your arm. And the opposite is true if you're left-handed. It just makes it easier to not stick your hand in your artwork, which is always a good thing. Switch back to the large brush. And I'm noticing in the inspiration photo, these horizontal pieces go off the page, so we will do that here too. Okay. There was also a little bit of a base piece like on the other side. That's looking pretty good. Alright, so now I am going to look at my inspiration photo, and I'm going to use my yellow ochre. I've got some of the brown on my brush, which is fine, and I'm mixing it with the yellow ochre, so I'm getting sort of a lighter brown color. And I'm going to pick the spots in the inspiration photo where the light is hitting the light tops of the fence posts. And also the rails. Okay. I may even throw some of the straight yellow ochre in there in a few places. Yeah. Okay. Let's do the same thing to the other side. Also to the tops of the rails. Straight yellow ochre. the reflection on this piece that runs along here. Okay, that's way too much. So let's take some of that off. There we go. Now let's grab some black. I'm going to wipe my brush off and put a little bit of yellow ochre right there, just above the black. Oops, too much. Okay. Okay, that's the perfect amount. Okay, now let's go back with the black. So just a little bit of paint and then blend it out with your baby wipe or a damp brush or your finger. Oh, just stuck my hand in some paint. Lovely. That's good. I'm also going to put a little bit of black on the fence posts. These little tiny touches of highlight and shadow, they seem like a lot of work, but they will really make your painting pop. Okay, let's do this here. Shadows on the fence posts. Anywhere where you feel like you get too much paint, just dab it off with a baby wipe. Okay. That looks pretty dang good. All right, I'm going to put some more brown here, touch up a few spots. Also got some straight brown ochre. Brown ochre. I don't even know if there's such a color. Burnt umber. You can keep going like this until you have added in as much or as little detail as you would like to have in your piece. I am going to mix some of my yellow ochre again with my brown. And I am going to put in a few of the highlights for the wood slats that make up the walkway. I think. Well, maybe I like it without though. I think I like it better without. See, that's what happens. So then you just take the baby wipe and you just take them away. Yeah, I'm happier with it out. So I'm happy with that. I would probably leave that at that and I would call it a day. That's a really nice painting. Let me show you what we can do with the mixed media side. So with the mixed media side, you aren't relegated to paint and brushes. It's mixed media. We can use markers. So I am going to get out my, let's see. I have a few different kinds of paint markers. These are called Posca pens. And these are mostly Montana markers. I think there's a couple of big Sharpie magic, the big magic markers in here. I'm going to grab out the brown. Got black. And these are different colors of brown, I think. We'll see what happens. And I've got some orange and some yellow. So when I'm doing this sort of thing with markers, I like to do a test on a piece of paper of the marker colors. Now some of these I haven't actually used before. They're still unlocked. Unlocked. They're still unopened. That's a pretty good color. And then I have a black. Doesn't look like I've used the black. Not too much. Let's see. Liking these two colors. The orange would be nice on there. The yellow we could use for highlights. So let's try that. Alright, so referring back to our photo again, we are going to start with, I threw this over there, I need it. So I have a Montana marker. These are markers. They're like any other paint pen, but these are filled with acrylic paint. These are by Montana, but there is a couple of different brands. This one is a finer point, and I think we want to use that for this part up here. So let me get it open. And get it started. Paint pens, of course, you have to shake up. and push down. There we go. Didn't take long. Okay, so I'm going to start up here like I did with the other one. And I gotta tell you guys, this kind of thing is so much easier with the paint pen. As I get to about there, I'm going to switch to the bigger marker. It's just like coloring with a Sharpie. If you're unsure about your drawing skills and being able to draw this, of course you could use your printout of your inspiration photo and some carbon paper and trace the basic shapes from your inspiration photo onto your paper or your board, whatever you're working on, and work from that, and then paint it in. There's no harm in doing that. Okay, I like the way that turned out. So while that's still wet, I'm going to go in with my black Posca pen. Remember, I said this is paint, so if you catch it when it's wet, you can blend them just a little bit, which I want to do. And just give them a little bit of a smudge. Get a fresh baby wipe. The old one was all gross. Okay. Yep. And see, I'm just realizing I did it again, didn't I? I'm right-handed. I started on the wrong side of my page. Oops. Okay. I am going to go in here with the brown, the large brown. And then some black. And we're going to go in here with some, I think on this one I'm going to do orange. Well, let's try the orange and see how it looks anyway. Yeah, I like the orange. Might still add the yellow, but I like the way the orange is looking. Okay, sorry about that. We ran out of battery juice there for a second. So I'm just adding some orange. Yeah, I like that. And I think I am gonna add some yellow. Okay, now to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to switch to the bigger pen. Now, if you get some lines drawn in and you're like, okay, those angles are totally wrong, like these right here. The paint is wet, but the background is dry. So I can just go in like that and just wipe it off and draw it again. Okay. And remember that your inspiration photo is a guide. It's not a Bible. Use it for reference for proportions and perspective, and even color, but you should be making your art piece your own. Maybe changing up the color, maybe not putting in a detail. Okay, now we're going to put in this bottom railing. the black. Then the orange. Just got some brown where I don't want it, so let's go in here with the baby wipe. There we go. That's what happens when your fingers are full of paint and ink and stuff. Okay. Then the yellow. And we're going to put a little bit here. Got a little smeary here, so we're going to wipe this back a little bit. And go in again. Oops. That's what happens when you push down on the pen on your piece of paper. Okay, I like that. Well, except for this right here. I like that a lot. So I'm happy with both of those. So let me put my paint pens away, and I'm going to show you a couple more things at least on this one. I'll be right back. Okay, I really like the idea of doing some splatters on this piece, but I don't want them right here. I want them more around the sides, like if they were like leaves or something. So I'm going to mask off this with just a little piece of torn paper. And I'm also going to protect this side with our magazine pages. Because I only want it here. I have some leftover orange and red paint on my palette that I've gotten really, really wet with water. And I have one of my small thin liner brushes, and I'm just going to do this. And it's just going to splatter bits of paint. Let me see if I can zoom you in so you can see. I really like that. And at the top, by where the trees are, I want to do some of that with the brown paint. It's not quite watery enough. You can go crazy with the splatters. You really can. And it does kind of get everywhere. But it's really cool. Okay. So wherever you've gotten splatters that you don't want them, of course you can wipe them back with a baby wipe. Or if you've gotten too many, like on your furniture. Because now I have splatters everywhere. Holy moly. Okay. So, like, right here maybe. No, I like that. I really like the way that looks. I'll zoom you back out again. So there are our two versions. Now, on this one, I'm not quite done. When I do my mixed media pieces, I almost always put a quote on them, and this one is no exception. I do think I want to put a quote down the pathway. I have to find a quote, though, so I'm going to go Google something, and I'll be right back while this is drying. I found a quote to put on here, but we have to wait for the drips of paint to dry. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. So we are definitely going to put this on here, and then I think that page is done. I know this page is done, and we will be right back. Okay, so I added a quote to my page that I think you can see. Maybe you can see. Let's see, wait, let me zoom out just a little bit. I don't know, the lighting is funny. Maybe you can see. I wrote it with black down the pathway, so it is a little bit difficult to see on the camera, I think. There you go. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. It's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. I wrote it on the acrylic paint with a Feud Ball 1.5 pen in black. I get a lot of my pens from jetpens.com. And when I'm doing a mixed media page like this one, I almost always add a quote, whether it is just covering part of the page or it covers the whole page, or I almost always put a quote on there somewhere. So there you have it, two very different pages done from the same inspiration photo. This one, of course, is strictly a painting and is pretty in its own right. And of course you could keep adding more details to this if you wanted, and add more leaves and more shadows and more bushes. You could really keep going. It's a really pretty piece. And then this, of course, is the mixed media piece with a book text background and some markers and pens and, of course, paint and some drippage. And we ended up doing drippage on this one, too. I do really like doing drippage trees. They're fun. I hope this gave you some ideas of what you can do with your art from an inspiration photo, and maybe even gave you an idea for doing these pieces in an art journal, in a book like this one, before you actually commit them to canvas. That's usually what I do. Go out and have a great day. Do something nice for yourself. You deserve it. I'll see you later.